Welcome to Let's Talk Red Hill, your source for the latest updates and insights on the Navy's progress at the Red Hill Bulk Fuel Storage Facility. This podcast is dedicated to keeping you informed, addressing your concerns, and sharing progress straight from the experts leading the way.
Hello, everyone. I'm Rear Admiral Mark Williams, and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Red Hill. Today, we have a special guest joining us, Mr. Milt Johnston, who's our Environmental Director for the Navy Closure Task Force. Milt, thanks for joining us. Why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm a professional geologist, and I've been a regulator for the last 40 years. So I do have some seasoning bringing to the table here. First, I was with the Commonwealth of Virginia, and then for the last decade, I've been with the Navy and working as the Hazardous Waste Program Manager at headquarters. And I came to Hawaii specifically to assist in closing this facility. I've been working with the closure now from defuel planning all the way now to the actual cleaning.
Awesome. Thank you again for joining us. So I want to talk a little bit about waste management here at the Navy Closure Task Force. Give us some typical examples of our waste streams that we generate here at Red Hill, and do kind of all projects at this scale generate waste?
Yeah, good question. Almost every action generates some types of waste if we're doing our job. In this case, we have three main waste streams that we're dealing with. The first one is our environmental investigation waste. That's the drilling fluids, the grout, the material from our installation of groundwater well monitoring wells. So that's one big waste stream. Some of the waste streams, another big waste stream is dealing with our granulated activated carbon unit, the treatment system that we use for the groundwater. That carbon that's in there, it has to be changed out on a regular basis. It's a pretty large scale waste stream on that. And the third major waste stream that we're just starting now to generate is the wash water from the cleaning of the tanks.
So all this waste that the waste is generated in all projects, but is all this waste considered hazardous waste?
No, in fact, most of what we've generated is not hazardous waste. Less than 0.2% of what we've generated so far is a hazardous waste.
So when we talk about hazardous waste, what makes it a hazardous waste? How's it waste determined to be? And how do you determine what it is?
Okay. Well, the first thing is we can't just look at it or smell it, taste it, feel it to determine whether it's hazardous waste or not. The hazardous waste management regulations here in Hawaii establish a specific process and testing requirements for us to do for each waste stream. It's called a waste determination. Once we get that waste determination, we develop a waste profile, which will dictate how that material is, where it's going to be disposed, how it's going to be disposed, and those types of things. The test that we're using is called the Toxicity Characteristic Leaching Procedure. Some people may have heard it as TCLP. And what that test does is it mimics what that waste will do over time in a landfill. That's the purpose of that standard.
So when we identified as a hazardous waste, what precautions are we taking in dealing with and handling that hazardous waste?
So the big thing that we're doing with dealing with the hazardous waste, even before we generate the waste, we're setting up central accumulation areas. These areas are secured. They have containment. They also have spill response equipment at these locations. They're inspected on a weekly basis to make sure that the containers are in good shape. And then from these central accumulation areas, we're sending it out to the appropriate disposal facility.
So you talked about like the central locations, where inside the facility, and then how long can it stay there before it goes downstream?
It all depends on where the waste is generated from. The key point is the point of generation. We have to be at or near for the accumulation. So some of the locations are within the tunnel, and some are external of the tunnels, but within the facility boundary. Depend on where the waste is generated. We only have 90 days from the day that we generate it to the day we get it off the installation.
So, and when it leaves the installation, where ultimately does this waste go to be properly disposed of?
So where it goes is, like I said, is dependent on the waste stream. Most of the waste generated so far has left the island. Then we dispose it at permitted facilities on the mainland. On-island disposal has been limited basically to inert materials, soils, GAC material, things like that don't have potential to leach. Additionally, we do have a large waste stream dealing with the dewatering that is handled through a treatment plant on island. And then the final part that we have that we're just starting to generate now is the wash water, and that is going to be treated on island at a permitted facility.
Okay. So you talk about the treatment, and I know we take a ton of precaution to prevent, but God forbid, right? What happens if any of this waste gets released to the environment?
So that's one of the big things that we do as part of my group is a release response planning. What we have in place right now are both the Navy Closure Task Force and our contractors have sat down. We developed very detailed spill response plans. We've submitted those spill response plans to DOH and EPA for approval, and then we would implement those if we actually had a release out there. But we got to remember now that the big risk has been eliminated with the defuel. So that the chance of having a catastrophic spill of something with all the containment structures that we have in place now is a very minimal risk at this point. One of the other things that we try to do is provide training through tabletop exercises and also through actual field exercises to actually exercise having the equipment there, the people involved, so they know what to do. And then the last big thing that we do as an emphasis is we develop a concept of operations that gets thoroughly reviewed all the way through leadership here and then with DOH and EPA prior to any activity out there that would generate waste.
So again, thanks for that detail on how we take all the precautions we're taking. What are we doing to minimize the amount of waste that we're generating?
So that's one of the big things under the federal regulations is waste minimization. And so when we're looking at these concepts of operations, we're putting strict protocols into how any cleaning material we're being used, how we're going to store it, how much we're using. We're trying to use the most minimal amount to accomplish the actual task at hand on that.
So hey, Milt, thanks for joining us today and for the detailed discussion around waste management. For our audience, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Let's Talk Red Hill.
Mahalo for listening to Let's Talk Red Hill. Stay tuned for our next episode, and be sure to subscribe to stay up to date. Be sure to download the mobile app by searching NCTF Red Hill in the Apple Store or Google Play.